Oh, yeah. Let's go. Tennessee gives Vol Nation pretty much, a cardiac type day for the Vols here. Not a beautiful at all first half. Second half, a little sluggish, but then once they turned it on, they played really good. And I think it worked out pretty good, and they got Kerry in foul trouble too. I think that helped out. Not Kerry Williams, by the way, but let's get in some thoughts here tonight, guys. Mr. Williams, what's your thoughts on this comeback tonight? And to you too.
I was not very happy at halftime. I was kind of looking at the TV like this has the makings of falling apart the rest of the season, and I knew probably the second half was the biggest second half of the season. I feel like if you lost that game, the season essentially could be washed at that point. Because personally, I didn't want to have to deal with Kentucky and Vanderbilt both saying like we swept you with first year head coaches. Like that's just not something I wanted to deal with. I would have full switched over to baseball at that point. I'm already kind of almost full switched over to baseball myself, but thankfully we came back in the second half. I don't know what the Deacon said at halftime, but if he can do that to start games and we actually show up in the first half at home, it'd be pretty good going the rest of the way.
Jordan, what's your thoughts on it? And I'll kind of piggyback on you, Kerry. Did y'all hear Slay at halftime? He's like, you either get on the bus or go home if you don't win this one. Jordan, what's your thoughts on the day?
Yeah, I was shocked at how bad they came out of the gate there in the first half and how bad they played. Not what you said about Ron Slay. I was kind of feeling the same way. I'm like, this is do or die. It's time to show what you're made of, and I'm glad that Slay he caught out Zakai at halftime. Zakai didn't play that great in the first half, 0 for 2 from the field, and then you saw a completely different player there in the second half. But the thing is, this just goes back to what we have said the last couple of games. It's just the inconsistency overall, because you have a terrible first half, and then you come out in the second half and you look like a team that, can make a run of March, shooting the ball, playing a little bit better defense. So it just goes back to the inconsistency. This is the same thing they did against Missouri, right? They played bad in the first half, come out in the second half and lit it up. So it's great to play well in the second half to get the comeback, but they've got to find some type of consistency to where this isn't the normal thing they're doing every single game.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of people saying they about turned it off at halftime. I mean, it was tempting with the baseball game starting up for sure, but I think we're all probably glad we didn't. And I always really kind of think at home too at that point that they have to have a run in them. I mean, I really do. And I mean, we saw it some last year where they would start off slow, and then of course they had Dalton Connect last year who could put them on their back and go. But yeah, Slay called Ziegler out, and he went into say some of Jordan, I see you have it on. You probably heard him talking about it there, Slay, and it's the old Vanderbilt guy in there with him, isn't it? Is it Fishback that's in the studio?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm wrong on that.
Fishback.
But they were talking about use the Bad Boys reference. If y'all have ever seen those movies where they drive like a maniac. But yeah, that's what Ziegler has to do, and that has to be his game. And it was definitely a tale of two halves on this team. And just kind of looking at it here, I'm going to link. Let's take a look at the live stats here while we're at it. And I did kind of make the decision to switch up. I was going to wait and do kind of a mashup of baseball and basketball, but baseball's in the fourth inning. This was kind of a big comeback, I felt like, and especially with the weather going on in Knoxville, who knows what's going to happen with that. I didn't want to wait and then them get postponed on it, so I'll just record something later on baseball. Baseball's rolling right now, but let's see. Here we go. Here's stats. Here we look at Chaz 21. Ziegler ended up with 22 on the day. Igor 10. Jemai Mashak with 9. And do you guys think, was there a bigger shot in the game than Jemai draining that 3? That was huge. That was huge. And, the thing too about this team, makes the big comeback. They finally got, I guess for lack of a better term, that midweek bye now. So they're off a week, and I think they've needed this for a bit. That would have been a tough one to go into if they had not made that comeback on it. But Felix 6-6, Boswell with his patented 0 points in 3 minutes, had 1 assist. Dubar hit a big 3 early on in the game, and then I thought Dubar had some pretty quality minutes actually, but I mean it shows him -6 while he's in. Gainey had 9. Cade Phillips had 1 with 1 rebound on the day. Looking at, let me break it up here. Here's what I want to see first half. First half, I mean, Chaz carried them in the first half. 46%. That's really not bad first half numbers. Am I wrong on that one? What do you think on that, Jordan?
The biggest thing that jumped out to me when you brought that up, and they talked about it at the beginning of the second half, is the points in the paint. I think we ended up with 36 overall, and you only had 12 in the first half. So that means you doubled up your paint points in the second half compared to what you had in the first half. And somebody texted me, probably towards the end of that first half, is like, man, all of our offense is being initiated so far outside the 3-point line. To me, that was one of the biggest differences in the offenses between Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Was Vanderbilt was getting a foot in the lane about every possession and then creating their offense off that, where Tennessee was just a plain jump shooting team. They weren't getting to the paint and being able to drive and kick or get to the rim. And that was the biggest thing that I said that, just jumped out, was the 12 paint points in the first half. It looks like you probably had 24 in the second half. So that was probably a clear message by Coach Barnes at halftime, is to drive the basketball and get to the rim. But outside of that, I mean, your shooting percentages weren't bad. You weren't getting enough possessions, and you weren't, putting enough stops also to go with that back to back, to kind of keep it respectable going into halftime.
Yeah. Let's see. It's a good question here. Kyle Beach said, yep, Ziegler scored all 22 in the second half, and that's why Slay was on him there at halftime. And, he shifted gears on that as well. And Kerry, I'll flip back to you here in a minute. But so there's your first half. We look at it here. Second half, different story. There it is. Zakai goes for 22 in he played the entire second half. Felix Akpara played 19 of it. Milicic played a little. Boy, Barnes was pissed at Milicic at one time on it. I don't know if that's so much his fault or somebody didn't alert him on. I mean, it looked like Milicic kind of went to sleep on that. 65%, 45.5% free throws. Free throws got to be better, in my opinion. But then for the game, you mentioned points in the paint right here. Where am I looking? I'm overlooking it somewhere here.
At the top.
Yep, that'd be a good place for it. 24 points in the paint compared to 12 in the first half. And if we look at for the game, here's your split. I mean, both teams were pretty close on 3-pointers. Vandy, a little bit better free throw shooting team. Field goal percentages, Tennessee was 56% for the game. Rebounds ended up 31-30. That says a lot to me for Tennessee, because they were getting smoked at one point on the boards. The rest of the way down through here, nothing. I mean, more assists. Where's turnovers? Where am I missing this one at? 6-5. I mean, that's a couple games in a row. Tennessee is really a few games where there's not been a lot of turnovers. I think I'm thinking of Missouri. There was a little bit more in the Kentucky game as well. But was there anything to you, Kerry, that stood out more, or was there at one moment in the second half where we're like, yep, this is what's going to spark us right here?
I think it was a lot of the defensive intensity that we kind of saw, and it was more effort from all the guys that you kind of saw. I know we saw the play where Igor ran down the entire court. Again, you dropped the ball to him. He went into the basket and scored. And then you had Meshack. Meshack was locking up guys. Seemed like in the second half, bounce back for him. And it was guys attacking the boards too. I mean, Chaz Lanier led you in rebounds tonight with 8 rebounds. I feel like that's something that he's progressed with the entire season of. He wasn't necessarily getting a lot of rebounds. Rick Barnes harped on him about that, and then here he is now tonight leading the team in rebounds. So that's pretty good. I mean, I think the second half was really good. the defense led the offense. Vandy didn't score. We creeped back. We did miss a good amount of shots in the second half that would have been huge momentum shots. I know the one where Gainey inbounded the ball. I think it was to Ziegler. Ziegler tossed it back to him. He had the wide open three and missed it. I thought that one would have been huge to hit, but either way, we still came back and finished it off. So I was pretty happy with the performance in the second half.
You think, Jordan, there's anything this week it might have happened that would have fired Chaz up by any chance?
Yeah, I think so. What the encouraging thing that I saw tonight between Chaz too is he got downhill and got to the rim. I think more often than what we've seen the last handful of games. I'm going to be curious to see if I can get the player shot chart here in a minute. I'm going to see what he finished with at the rim. And I want to compare that to like the rest of his games because I feel like this may be the game where he had more points at the rim than he's probably had at any point this entire season because he only finished with 2 made threes, but he had 9 made baskets. So that's 7 shots that he made right there. And I know maybe 2 of those might have been mid-range, so it feels like at least 5 or 4 of those were layups or I don't think he had a dunk, so probably layups. So that's one thing that, I talked about Frank too a couple of times is Chad's inability to get to the rim and finish. He just was a jump shooter. Well, tonight, he started attacking the rim a lot more, and that helps open yourself up shooting threes because then they have to respect both. They have to respect your ability to drive to the rim and finish and also respect your ability to be a jump shooter. So that's one of the things that stood out, and going back to the points in the paint, we also, I feel like, maybe out-rebounded them in the second half too because in the first half they were dominating boards. We couldn't even really get any kind of second chance opportunities because they were dominating the boards. So it just kind of feels like the first half flipped to the second half. It's just like a switch that got flipped at halftime. I don't know what Rick said to them, but they come out like a completely different team, more intensity, boxing out better, getting to the rim more often, getting to the paint more often. So they come out just completely different mindset.
Yeah, going to your point right there, Tennessee, I just pulled that up here as you said it. Tennessee smoked Vandy in the second half on the boards 20-10.
Yeah,
huge difference from the first half. And if we go look the first half here, you probably go look at it opposite 21-10 Vanderbilt in the first half. So,
yeah,
I mean, it was truly a tale of 2 halves for this game today. And, you look here, Tennessee scored 50 in the second half. I mean, how much of the time, I'm sure you're probably on this, how much of the time did the main lineup we talk about play together today?
Let me see. I'll pull it up real quick. I know that in the first half, it checked in at 15:04, played 49 seconds, and was -1. They hit a free throw, and Vandy had a 2. And then it played 4 minutes and 54 seconds to basically end the first half. They outscored Vandy 9-8. And then it played 48 seconds again in the second half and was 2-0 on Vandy. And then it played again for 2:06 from 6:01 to 3:55 to go in the second half. It played 2:06, and it outscored Vandy 6-4. So it was plus again and the plus minus once again in a game. So it's still being effective.
Yeah. Yep. This is a good question right here. What's happening with our 3-point defending? Here, let me take it off screen so to quit blocking you here, Jordan. Kerry, I'll throw it to you based on what you're seeing. What is going on with our 3-point defending right now?
I'm not sure exactly all that's going wrong. I do know, I feel like over the past few games, they've just been seemingly making a lot more shots than other teams have in the past. Teams get hot. It's still hard to keep them down when it comes to percentage wise. And Vanderbilt did that tonight. They had contested shots and they made them. That number 1, that Edwards kid, everything he threw up tonight went in. And half of them looked like awful shots, but they still swished in the basket. So sometimes it's just the other teams making a lot of shots. I know, of course, we're leaving a lot of guys open, but I don't necessarily know why that would happen. I'm sure Jordan would know a lot more about that than I would.
Well, you look at Missouri, you look at Kentucky, and you look at Vanderbilt. Is it a case it's the defense, or is it a case of tip the hat to these other teams, or what's your thought on it, Jordan?
Who is the kid? I can't think of his name. I'm blanking right now. That played for Kentucky last year, and he reminds me of this Edwards kid that plays for Vanderbilt. They had Shepard, Reeves, and there was another guard they had last year that was very bouncy and could really get his own shot. But to me, they're very similar players, and he tore us up last year both times we played Kentucky, and now this Edwards kid has done the same thing. To me, it goes back to what we said after the Kentucky game, which is, I'm going to continue to harp on it. These modern offenses are all about spreading the floor and spreading you out and trying to make you play one-on-one style, like the NBA style. And our defense is so oriented on helping in the gaps, over helping, getting into the passing lanes, diving in to get steals and rip the ball away. And what these teams are doing is they're spreading you out very far, and then they're trying to create one-on-one basketball or using the two-man game, and they're getting leverage to be able to drive to the paint. And then our team defense is, if you get beat, to help in. Well, when you help in, you're leaving your guy in the corner open, or your guys and moving to get open. And that's why all these teams are just getting so many open look threes. And, it goes back to what I said again, which is kids these days are just so much more offensive oriented, and they all grow up shooting the ball. They all grow up being driven more offense. And you look across the landscape of college basketball, and there's just more kids that can just shoot the basketball at a high clip and can shoot off the bounce at a high clip. And now you're getting these offensive systems, these offensive schemes that just spread you out and make you play one-on-one. Instead of playing team defense, we're a really, really good team defensive unit. But when you put us one-on-one, you put us on islands, we're really not that great. And that's what these schemes like Vanderbilt are doing, like Missouri's doing, like Kentucky's doing. So, we had talked about this, I think, the last time that I was on here. And I was like, I didn't understand why we have Alabama's number. And, we can't beat Kentucky. We've struggled with Vanderbilt. We've struggled with Missouri. But for some reason, we have Alabama's number. Somebody made a good point to me this week, and it's that they're easy to guard because they're not going to shoot a mid-range jump shot. Alabama is strictly going to get a layup, or they're going to shoot a three. You know where they're getting their shots from. Teams like Vanderbilt and Missouri and Kentucky, they're not as geared to not shoot mid-range shots. They're okay with those. So you have to guard all 3 to 4 areas of the floor with them while they have you spread out. So that's why I think we just have a hard time guarding these type of teams right now. Is just they're spreading you out and they're driving and kicking and driving and kicking. And then when you don't overhelp and you say, okay, I'm going to stay on my man, that's when they get the free run to a layup.
Yep, totally agree on that. I did have to look that up. It was Antonio Reeves, Reed Shepard, and Rob Dillingham.
That's the kid.
Yep. Dillingham went for 35, it says, in the first one. He didn't go for as much in the second one, but he was still double digits there. But, yeah, I mean, it just feels like Tennessee they're still old school in the fact that, we'd rather beat you by shutting you down than scoring. It's last year's team, I feel, was the exception rather than the norm. I mean, if you put Tennessee teams out through the years, that one, especially with DK, I was texting with old Backwoods TN. He's been on here before we were texting, and I think we probably really took Dalton Connect and Hendon Hooker, those type guys. Now that you're looking back on it, might have been generational type players that come around that made these stubborn coaches look a little bit better along the way. But I mean, I said we all know Barnes can be stubborn. That doesn't mean we don't think he's a great coach or anything like that. It's just part of it. But week off now, Tennessee 5 seed. You got how does a 1 versus 2 game go off at 4:00 today? I saw that and I'm like, what's tonight? Is North Carolina playing North Carolina State or something? Duke playing Wake Forest or something that needed to take precedent? I mean, I don't know on that, but you got to think if Bama or Auburn lose close, they're not falling below us. If Duke or Florida loses, then Tennessee may move back up to that 1 line. But is this going to be a year where to get a 1, we're going to have to finish strong and go deep in the SEC tournament, or is the SEC tournament irrelevant I'll go you first, Jordan. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, we all three talked about this the last time I was on here about what we thought the end stretch was going to be. Well, you got one of those now that we said you had to win. So then you got LSU, South Carolina. There's your 3 wins. And like Kerry said, you got to get one of A&M, Alabama, and then who else? Ole Miss.
Yeah,
You got to get one of those to really go 4-2. If you could go 5-1, that's going to set you up really, really well going into the SEC tournament. And then if you can win a game in the SEC tournament to at least, get to the semifinal. Because if you go 5-1 down the stretch, I think you should be a top 4 seed in the SEC tournament, which will get you the double bye. So you'll be playing on Friday. And if you can just win that Friday game to get to Saturday, I think that probably gets you a 1 seed, depending on what everybody else around you does. And if you go 5-1, win one in the SEC tournament, you're definitely a 2 seed. No worse than a 2 seed at that point. So this stretch here is going to be key. You mentioned earlier about how we have next week off. I will let these players rest as much as possible, get them off their feet, let them rest, let them recoup to get ready for this, 5-game stretch. And then you have, another week off pretty much after the SEC tournament before you have to play again. So go all out these last 5 games, get as much rest over the next week as you can. Try to go steal you one against A&M. Win the ones that you should, and, see what really win the home games, and then steal you one between, A&M or Ole Miss. If you can do that, you should be 5-1, and that should set you up well for what your seeding is in the SEC tournament and what your seeding is in the NCAA tournament.
I was sitting here looking. I really hope this would not happen. But the first and second round matchups, I was curious on it. This would be just freaking perfect if this happened. Tennessee goes 5-1, wins a couple games, or even wins the SEC tournament, gets a 1 seed, and then guess where they would probably get to go for their first ever 1 seed to play? None other than freaking Rupp Arena. Unless they got sent to Raleigh. But how perfect would that be? A 1 seed, and you basically go to, nobody up there is going to be pulling for Tennessee other than Tennessee fans. So what is the odds of that happening? But, I'd go back.
Buy that out.
What's that?
The Kentucky fans may buy that out, buy the tickets, and then just show up and root against us.
I wouldn't put it past them. For this. They would take pride in that one, for sure. I mean, I can't say if the roles were reversed that Tennessee fans shouldn't do the same in that regard. But looking at because I think back when Tennessee won, let's see, the year they won the SEC tournament, they still ended up a 3 seed, right?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Because it seemed like that would have pushed them to a 2 seed. And because Auburn had lost, and it ended up, it didn't matter, and Auburn still got the 2 seed, and Tennessee didn't move. So that showed to me at that point that they really don't pay attention to these conference tournaments. But I could see it in some regards, like this one, where there's so many guys. UT just hit a 3-run bomb.
Levi Clark.
Who was that? Oh, Clark. Yep. All right, sweet. But I don't know, man. I are either of you guys fans of the conference tournaments?
No.
I was before we won the tournament. Since we won the tournament, I could care. I don't care about it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sit right to me because obviously growing up when ETSU would have a big year or something, people took notice, being where, both Kerry and I both are from. But it always didn't sit well with me that ETSU could win the regular season, but then they had to go win the conference tournament to get in. I don't know. That just doesn't. How does 4 days overtake the body of work? I mean, how many times have we seen some team get – I mean, you could theoretically, unless you're one of these conferences where not everyone makes conference tournament, you could theoretically not win a single game the entire season, and you win your conference tournament and you get in. Something's wrong with that. Something's wrong with that.
So we were talking about, the seeding in the SEC tournament. I was just going to say real quick that right now Missouri's playing Georgia, and they're 7-4. We're 8-5 with a day's win. A&M, who we play next Saturday, they're 9-3, but they have to play at Mississippi State on Tuesday. So that could be a chance. If they can drop that game on Tuesday, you're going to College Station with a chance to move in front of them in the SEC standings. You're very likely not going to pass Auburn, Alabama, or Florida. So the three teams ahead of you to get the 4 seed is A&M at 9-3, Ole Miss at 8-4, and Missouri at 7-4, and you're 8-5. So the 3 teams in front of you that you need to jump to get the 4 seed in the tournament, you play 2 out of those 3 down the stretch, Ole Miss and A&M. So you have the opportunity here, as we're talking about, to set yourself up to give yourself the double bye in the SEC tournament. And if you win that game, that's going to be another – if you win that Friday matchup with a double bye, that's another quad 1 game that you're going to be playing there. So that's going to boost your resume again to help yourself with being a 2 seed or a 1 seed.
Yeah, and that's – should we not hold the tiebreaker over Missouri? Now we beat them?
Yeah.
I mean, I never know what they go with. I mean, obviously, if you get into 3-way ties, that changes things. But, I think that's the big thing, trying to avoid that double bye. But how many SEC teams are projected to get in the tournament right now? I know some have dropped out, but I haven't seen Texas is still considered, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
I think it was 13 out of the 16. Depending on, I think Oklahoma's that 13th team that's right there on the line, depending on what they do down the stretch. But like he said, it's either going to be 12 or 13, I think.
Okay, well,
Texas got a good chance to win tonight. I mean, they play Kentucky at home, and Kentucky doesn't have Robinson or Butler. So,
well, I mean, what I was told this week, though, Kentucky is probably going to win the national championship. So, evidently, you're selling Kentucky a little bit short. So, I mean, can't believe you would do that. I think it was something. It was the comment about they only play good against Tennessee. That fired some people up in the comment. I took up for Kentucky fans. Not anymore. I saw the best of them this week. And it's always funny to me how I always figure when Tennessee wins is when you get it worse. Nope. It's when they lose is when you get the worst of it, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But, let's see. So Kentucky's at Texas tonight. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're like Tennessee in regards they're inconsistent. The difference with them is they depend on their offense, where Tennessee depends on their defense. And, that was you brought up an interesting point earlier, Jordan, about why Tennessee has success against Alabama versus Kentucky. I guess Kentucky's a little more mid-rangey in respect. And like you said, if somebody doesn't help out, they're getting to the rim. I mean, that's where I don't know. Like I said, you mentioned the great equalizer, the 3-pointer.
Yeah, you
can shoot it. It makes things go for you a whole lot better. Most teams recruit to that. There's one that thinks that's overrated, apparently, and it's the team we're talking about.
Yeah, and just real quick, I looked it up because you were talking about the mid-range. So far this season, Kentucky has attempted 101 mid-range twos. Alabama has attempted 50.
Oh,
so it's
they're all their rim or 3-pointer then.
Yeah,
for sure. Auburn and Alabama, where are they at today?
Alabama.
Is it Alabama?
Mm-hmm. Also, because I mentioned it earlier, Missouri, they've attempted 103 mid-range twos. So that's what I was talking about earlier about how Alabama is kind of easier to guard with their style because it's either going to be in the paint, rim, or 3. Whereas we're struggling with Missouri and Kentucky a little bit because they will shoot it at all 3 levels of the floor. They're not afraid to pull it up in the mid-range too. So when they spread you out the way they do, They're not spreading you out to only get to the rim or to only shoot a three. They're just spreading you out to get the best shot available and to really play one-on-one basketball and move the ball around and get you in mismatches and not allow you to overhelp into the gaps. Where Bama, you can overhelp into the gaps because you know they're not going to pull up for a mid-range too. They're going to go straight to the rim, so you can kind of put your defenders in those areas that you know they're going to shoot the ball and play team defense that way compared to the other two.
So what's kind of to you guys stands out about like Tennessee today? You score 31 in the first half and 50 in the second half. What's the difference in like Kerry? What's the difference in the offense other than obviously making shots? But I mean, what stood out to you that was different in terms of, I don't know, ball movement? Was it just more fluid? What stood out to you today that you're like, yeah, this is different right here?
I feel a little bit of it in the second half was just the more eagerness to get nasty, of like going to get rebounds, make contact. I feel like the offensive side, we made a lot of contact. It was very physical, which was kind of opposite of what we saw in the first half. I guess it was addressed at halftime of we needed to be more physical on the offensive end, and we were more physical on the offensive end, and it eventually worked our way. I mean, if you match the physicality that we brought in the second half on offense and you match that with the defense that we typically play, it typically goes in your favor. And that's, I think, what we saw in the second half.
Jordan, what stood out to you about it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about their ability to get to the paint and get to the rim. If you can get to the paint, get to the rim, and create easy offense, that also allows you to create easy offense outside, because then teams have to respect your ability to finish around the rim, and they kind of have to squeeze in a little bit, and then you can drive and kick. You know, the Meshack three there, it was a drive and kick three. A lot of that stuff was drive and kick stuff, and you're finishing around the rim. Also, when you're driving to go around the rim that way too, and you have got like Akpara down there, now you have somebody down there for an offensive rebound and a putback too. You know, it goes back to the first half where we weren't rebounding the basketball and we weren't getting points around the rim. It goes back to what my friend said earlier, which was we were initiating all of our stuff was outside of the three-point line. There was no driving downhill to get to the rim. There wasn't anything going around the elbow area. So you didn't have anybody down there to get offensive rebounds or to box anybody out because all your guys are spread so far out. And then you changed that up and you started making it a point to drive and get downhill.
It's always kind of puzzling how it's so drastically different sometimes. And, I mean, you look at the Florida game too. It was the second, not even talking about the first Florida game, but the second one, you know, first half, it was defense was really good. Offense kind of spit and sputtered. Second half, they played lights out. And that was without Ziegler and without Igor, both. But I don't know, man. This team is they're rewarding at times, and they're pull your hair out at times as well, for sure. But I don't know, man. It's that was a good win, though. I mean, I think Vanderbilt's a good team, obviously, and I'm kind of like Slay said. If you lose that one, I think the team was at a crossroads at that point with it, and you know the fan base was going to be livid over it as well. While we're in here, guys, make sure you hit that like, that share the content out, subscribe. Super chats are appreciated. We do appreciate super chats, tips on here as well. Those are always greatly appreciated also. This is pretty much it right here. I agree, Jekyll and Hyde. That's what this team is. They are total Jekyll and Hyde team. We've talked about down the stretch, 4-2, 5-1. I think is that worst case. I think we all agree 4-2 is kind of the worst case. I don't think you can afford to lose to A&M, to Ole Miss, and to Alabama. I just don't. I think that pushes you possibly even down to a 3 seed at that point. Am I wrong on that?
I think it will depend on, you know, what happens behind you. Because, you know, I looked earlier in the week and losing that Kentucky game, losing that Kentucky game, I'm like, you know, we're going to fall the polls. We're going to fall, in the seeding line, and we really didn't move at all in the seed line. But then I went and looked, and it's like everybody behind us keeps losing. So that's, even though we're struggling a little bit, teams behind us just continue to lose, and that helps us. Like today, Purdue's ranked 7th. They lost to Wisconsin by 10. So that's another team that you're fighting with for a 2 seed, and they lose. For a little bit, Arkansas was beating A&M, but A&M came back and won. So, and right now, Houston, who's 6th, they're up by 5 against Arizona with 5 minutes to go. So, some of these teams that you're still battling with for a 2 seed, they're losing. So then that, as bad as we think we're playing and we're still losing the games to Kentucky and playing bad today, you get a win. There's still teams behind us that are just like we are. They're Jekyll and Hyde. So that's just, you have a top group of Duke, Florida, Alabama, and Auburn that, are just pretty much consistent and just they keep winning and they keep doing, keep racking up the wins, and they're going to stay on that 1 seed line. But then everybody else behind you is pretty much just a jumbled mess. What would your all's reactions be if those brackets come out and we get paired with Purdue again? I can't take it. I couldn't take it again. Between losing to them in 2019 and then losing to them in the bowl game, Heupel's first year, and then losing to them twice last year, I couldn't take it. I would feel better about us winning this year, just because Zach Edey's not there any longer, and he's not going to get the benefit of getting all the calls. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want it. Yeah, Rhonda's Frank, bite your tongue. Yep, me and Purdue fans had to go around last year to end because, according to them, Edey was killed the whole game. He didn't initiate any of it, I don't know, man. Sometimes, Kerry, what's your thought if we were to see Purdue?
I mean, I like it. I like it. I mean, you're going to beat them eventually. I don't think they're that good this season. I think we match up good against them. I think we could beat them this time for sure. And then probably you beat them this year, and you probably don't play them for a few years. So you get the last taste of medicine so far, which, I mean, I'm okay with playing any team personally. I mean, we took on Duke a few years ago in the tournament. Everybody's like, Duke's going to win. They're Duke. And then we just dominated them.
They whipped Duke.
Yeah, so I think we could do the same thing to Purdue this season. Last year, it was just lucky for them. I mean, they had the foul merchant himself. And look at him in the NBA. He fouled out first whatever game that he played in. So, and he's not doing much at the NBA level. He's just being kind of decent, and he'll never amount to anything in the NBA anyway. So, that's Purdue though. They're not really going to amount to anything. At least they made the national championship last year because
they were pretty good. Now they were a good team.
I mean, that was like the best year they're going to have, and it's kind of back down to reality with them. I mean, they're stuck in the Big Ten, and they're not going to win anything in any sport anytime soon. So, oh well.
Well, that's one way to put it. I kind of think that sometimes you have that. It's kind of like Fulmer with Florida back in the day. Once Fulmer finally beat Spurrier, he got that national championship. It's kind of like Tony V with Omaha. Couldn't win the first game in Omaha each year. Finally got it last year. Look what happened with it as well. I think sometimes you have to get over that, whatever it is, that block. If Tennessee could get Purdue, it goes 2 ways on that one. You could either kind of get the monkey off your back, or you're furious again for losing to Purdue and saying you never want to see them again. But based on, and we've seen this is kind of a load of crap too. They put the seedings out today, and I think it was Auburn, Alabama, Duke, Florida, the top 4, right? And then it was Tennessee. According to that, it should go snake order, but it obviously didn't last year because Tennessee, based on it, should not have been with Purdue last year. So are we sure that if it stayed as is, that Tennessee would be with Florida in a bracket? I mean, to me, when I was harping on it a lot going into the selection, so we should have been a 1 seed over Arizona last year. Yeah. When you look at the metrics and what all happened,
We should have been a 1 seed over them, but they made them the 1 seed. That way they could go. I think it was Los Angeles was the first round or the regional final or something, and that was easier for their fans to get to than it would be for our fans. It's about selling tickets. It's about matchups. It's about storylines. The committee can lie and say they don't look at that. They 100% look at that. It's 100. I mean, they put it to where Tennessee was going to face Texas in the second round. I mean, what storyline was that going to be, right? I mean, Brick Barnes facing his former team in the NCAA tournament. So they definitely go off storylines and location. And if it didn't go off of any of that and they went directly off of metrics, Tennessee would have been a 1 seed in Arizona instead of Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, that's like in the baseball tournament last year, and it worked out differently, but it just so happened Tennessee was put with Wake. Wake was the 2 in the East Carolina region, but yeah, that wasn't by accident with a certain pitcher being on the Wake Forest roster. I wanted to see it too, but it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, and I think the committee, it really kind of became a double standard last year, because the year Tennessee wins the conference tournament, doesn't matter, does not move them up any. Arizona won the Pac-12 title tournament, if I'm not mistaken, right? Last year? I'd have to look at that. Maybe I'm wrong. I was thinking they either won it or went deep into it, and so the committee put them up.
I could be wrong. I'm going to look real quick. But I felt like they lost the conference tournament, and that's why I was so hard. But they may have.
Maybe they did. Well, because Tennessee got.
Yeah, they lost their conference tournament. They lost to Oregon.
Oregon won it, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost to Oregon by 8, and they were 25-8 in overall. And we were what? We were right about that, I think.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, Tennessee got drilled by Mississippi State.
We were 24-8. And looking at it, if I remember correctly, last year we had more quad 1 wins. Our strength of schedule was higher. Our strength of record was higher. We had more quality wins. We had more ranked wins. And they got the 1 seed because they had to put somebody out west in the West bracket as a 1 seed. They wanted to do Arizona so they could sell more tickets and more fans would show up instead of putting us out there.
Yeah, it's they're about a joke. I mean, it is what it is, though, but I'm still calling it. It's going to happen. Don't know when, but it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be the SEC and it's going to be the Big Ten. They're going to bust loose from the NCAA. I don't think it's a matter if. I think it's a matter of when. And I think you'll have ESPN and Fox that'll be very generous to them to do it too. I don't know what the end game is going to look like on that, but I don't know how it'll definitely happen in football. And I would think if it happens in football, it has to happen in the remaining sports as well. But, what it is in that regard. But, it's good we leave on a happy note today, because this could have been a long week. Of course, Tennessee is off midweek this week. No game. They play at Texas A&M next week. I do not remember the time off the top of my head. I'm going to look. Jordan may have it, or Kerry, one of you guys may have it memorized. I don't know.
Thought it was a night game.
Noon.
I think I was wrong.
12 o'clock. ESPN next Saturday. Then the following Tuesday, LSU at 9 o'clock. SEC Network. March 1st. Who you guys hope wins today, Bama or Auburn?
I think Bama will win.
Yeah.
Man, I hope they do. Just I don't know, man. Auburn's up there on my crap list pretty high right now. So and two, a part of me would like to see Bama come in a couple weeks, number 1. That's really what I want to see too, more than anything. If the roles were reversed and Auburn was coming in, I would probably want Auburn win, come in ranked number 1. But noon game, Tennessee's record, I'm kind of curious on this because I know in football seemed like the times differed. So Tennessee, I don't know that they've lost an early game this year. Let's see, both Kentucky games were night games. Auburn was a night game. Vanderbilt was a mid-afternoon game. Florida was a night game. So we're pretty good in noon games this year. Maybe I'd say it went pretty good last week at noon against Oklahoma. Hopefully it'll carry over next week. That could be the toughest game remain. I know Bama comes to Knoxville, but, like you said earlier, the styles. Tennessee can beat Alabama. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be expecting Tennessee to beat Alabama at home. Just because, like you mentioned earlier, the styles they play. But I think we're going to look into wrapping up on that one. You guys got any final thoughts before we get out here? Kerry, I'll let you start off on that.
I don't really have anything. Good win today. Enjoy the rest of the baseball game. Fifth inning right now, 9-1. Probably will end up in a mercy rule, but overall, great weekend of baseball. Good day of basketball today. Enjoy the rest of the games. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.
Yep. Jordan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just say it's nice to come on here, after a win, because at halftime I didn't feel like that was going to happen. So it was nice to have a really good second half. And I'll just say what I said earlier, which is you got a week off now. So, rest up, get some rest, and then down the stretch here, put some wins together. I like to see them, try to finish the end of the season, their last 6, 5-1. They got to win today. So now go 4-1 in these last 5. Heading into the SEC tournament, and you'd be sitting pretty. So I find some consistency too. I don't know if you can this late in the season, but it'd be nice if they can find some consistency on the offensive end.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. But like I said earlier, at least we go into this basically week before playing on a high note because it did not look very promising for a while. Yeah, Kerry hit on it. Base Falls up 9-1. Right now, Phillips went through 5 innings or did he go 4 innings?
It was 4.
He went 4 because Sharman come up and give up a bomb a minute ago. Some freshmen looking really good today. I think it's a combination of 2 things. This baseball team is very good. I don't think Hofstra's very good along the way, but both things can be true. And by my count, Hofstra they have 2 hits. They got 2 today. I still am a firm believer yesterday was a no-hitter. The old school part of me is when you don't feel the baseball, that's an error.
Yeah.
And evidently they use analytics. Well, he hit it so hard, that should be a hit. No, not should not happen. But we're going to wrap up on that. Appreciate you guys jumping on kind of impromptu manner on this. And we'll see where we move going forward. All these games are really, as far as going live, game by game basis. Definitely when we get to tournament stuff, go live. If these guys want to join, they're always more than welcome to. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a great rest of your Saturday. There will not be a live baseball. I'm not turning around going live again in 30 minutes. So I'll just do a post game. May look at doing a post game live tomorrow. Baseball. See how I feel on that one because we got Daytona 500 tomorrow. So got to be watching that along the way. So you guys have a great rest of your evening. He's Kerry. He's Jordan. This is Frank. This is the House of Orange. You guys have a great rest of your evening. Go Vols. And it is always a great day to wear the orange.